ऑन हो गया मेरा। Good morning and namaskar. Welcome to the final day of this 3-day online training program on disaster management from the 25th to 27th November 2020, that is jointly organized by National Institute of Disaster Management in collaboration with Oil India Limited. Myself, Raju Thapa, young professional, National Institute of Disaster Management, and I will be the moderator of today's session. For the last 2 days, we were joined by distinguished speakers who very wonderfully underlined that petroleum sector are at risk due to massive capital investment, the involvement of many parties, the use of complex technologies, as well as the high environmental and social impacts. The risk is the probability of the occurrence of some uncertain, unexpected, and even unwanted events, which will change the probability prospect of a given investment. It was also highlighted that in general, risk factor and hazards could be induced in the oil and gas sector by the parameters contained in the environment, in the industrial system, or by the environment. Disaster can happen at any time and certainly cannot be prevented, but their impact can be minimized by the adaptation of the strategy for dealing with disaster. Risk should be mitigated since the beginning to prevent disaster. Therefore, any risk analysis must be integrated with the disaster risk assessment and disaster management. So today's program consists of 2 sessions. In the technical session, we will be joined by Professor A.K. Tyagi, Professor and Industrial Fellow, Energy Business and Policies, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies from UPES School of Law, Dehradun, Sri Raj Kishore Singh Ji, General Manager, Fire Services from Oil India Limited, and Professor Surya Prakash, Head, GMR Division, NIDM, who will be enlightening us in the theme of this 3-day training program. This technical session, it will be followed by valedictory session. Before starting this technical session, I will request all our participants to kindly raise their question in the question answer chat box. After each presentation by the distinguished speakers, we will have a question answer session, and we will try to clear all the query that you have after each presentation. So to start with the technical session, for our first presentation, we are joined by Sri Raj Kishore Singh, General Manager, Fire Services from Oil India Limited. I will request Sri Raj Kishore Singh Ji to. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. A very good morning to all. Respected.
Yes, sir, you are not audible, sir. I think your mic, sir.
Actually, maybe you check your speaker.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, sir. Now audible. Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Very good morning to all. Respected moderator, Sri Raju Thapa ji, young professional, NIDM, all panelists, speakers, and all participants. A very good morning to all. We all know that our nation has witnessed an exponential rate of industrial development in the last 4 to 5 decades, which has a significant impact on oil and gas industry involving upstream and downstream company of our country. Due to the rapid growth in the NP industry, newer hazards have been emerged, and to mitigate the same, the time is the essence. Otherwise, it may lead to a major catastrophe. Therefore, proper fire and emergency risk management is required on company level to mitigate any disaster at the earliest to prevent the huge losses. Why we need the fire safety? To protect the human life, property losses, environmental losses, and nearby community. In industrial application, to reduce the asset losses, help in business run efficiently, enhance the productivity of the organization, build the team spirit and morale within the people, and minimize the losses due to fire. Loss of life due to fire happen mainly due to the inhalation of the smokes, gases, burning of the body tissues, nervous shock, and loss of property. There are two types of losses, mainly the direct losses, 40% damage due to the direct fire, direct heat, and indirect losses due to the heat, water, breakage of the material, etc. So we had the core function, business of the fire service are the fire prevention, fire protection, and firefighting. We at Oil India Limited, towards the fire prevention, as you know, the fire prevention is better than the cure. So our 70% activity is based on fire prevention area, where to prevent the fire at the so that there should not be any fire at any installation. So for that, we are doing the regular audits, inspection as per the institutes, and external like OSD, DGMS. So these are the audits throughout the year are being carried out. Then to educate the people, to familiarize the people, we are giving the rigorous training as per our OMR. Minimum 20% people should be trained, but we are giving the training every year more than around 40%. So people are very much aware, very much familiarized with all the risk hazards, what to do in case of any emergency. To further deal with to mitigate any emergency, we are doing the regular mock fire drill. In mock fire drill in all the installation, and monthly basis, all installations are being carried out the mock fire drill in the installations, and what are the outcomes has come that are reviewed and implemented for the during the new drills. And based on that, we are preparing the emergency plan for individual installations. Next, the fire protection. Our main second area of the concern is the fire protection. As you know, if any installation, if you are having the 3 line of the fire protection system, you can say you are having the best fire protection system for that particular installation. So what are the 3 line of the fire protection system? That first line of fire protection system, like your primary first aid firefighting equipment. So all installations are provided with the first line of the fire protection system to deal with any emergency at the incipient stage. Then if any emergency has not been mitigated at the primary level, then next course of action is the fixed firefighting system. In the fixed firefighting system, the variety of the systems are there, and based on the risk of the installation of the establishment, all our oil installations are provided with the fixed firefighting system. Depending upon the severity, depending upon the hazards, are to be protected. So, and as you know, this all for any installation, the fixed firefighting system is the backbone of any installation to mitigate any major to deal with any major emergency. So all installations are protected with the fixed firefighting system, barring our producing oil and gas well, where there is no fixed firefighting systems are provided. Then your maintenance of the all the fixed firefighting systems are installation to be promptly to be maintained as per the statutes, and occupant of all the firefighting. So as per the latest technological development, we are changing our updating our firefighting equipments and system in the installations. Then last but not the least, the third, your firefighting. We are hardly, in Oil India Limited, we are hardly 10%. Our job is the firefighting. So whenever there is a fire call receiving, we are attending the fire call very promptly. Then, as per the latest trend, latest requirement, updating our firefighting appliances as per our area is concerned. Then proper our manpower and fire station management we are doing time to time. Next. So as a fire prevention measure, we are doing to familiarize the people. We are carrying out the mock drills in all the installations. So you can see few glimpse of the mock fire drills which are being carried out at our installation. This is the offsite mock fire drill which is being carried out, and all the agency have attended. This is the organized. This is the disaster. NDRF, then which are carried out. Another, we are having the live to further enhance the capability of our operating engineers and people. We are having the live firefighting training ground at oil, where time to time we are giving the training to our all operating personnel, so that in case of any emergency they can fight the fire, deal the emergency very effectively. And then your second line of firefighting system, all the installations are having the fixed firefighting system. Already I have told. So these are the high band monitors. Next. Monitor long HBLR, this medium extension foam generators, then high volume long range monitors. These are as per the risk. This sprinkler systems which are protected to the tank, crude oil storage tanks. So these are the fixed firefighting systems are provided. This foam pouring system you can see. So all the installation where our tanks are there, crude oil storage tanks are there, are protected with the foam pouring system in all the installations. This is your linear heat rim seal fire protection systems are wherever there is a floating tube tanks which are protected with the linear hollow metallic tube detectors along with the your foam modules. So this is the rim seal fire protection system are covered with the all floating tube tanks in our. This is automatic suppression system wherever there is a establishment in our installations, buildings where the high risks are there. So that building, that area are covered with the automatic fire detection cum suppression systems. Next. This is a typical layout I have given. Wherever there is our installations are there, this all installation covered with the fire water network along with the hydrant, monitors, foam system, sprinkler systems are provided in all oil collecting stations and gas compressing stations. Next. Then our third line of the fire protection system, that is the mobile firefighting system. So our fire stations are equipped with the latest technology to deal with any emergency very promptly. You can see in Oil India, the total number of the fire calls attended from 2015-16 to the tune of every year, though you can say more or less to the tune of 100. So every year, these are the total fire calls attended by our Oil India, but hardly sometimes three maximum that major fire calls which has been dealt by our fire service every year. So as per the Disaster Management Act 2005, our company has also made a disaster management plan. So I'm not going to read this what is disaster, but as per the plan, we have also made our disaster management plan for the oil. What are the fire hazards are in oil industry. First, fire and explosion, oil and gas blowout, tank fires, jet fire, spillage, fire, boil over, slope over, explosion like BLEB, UCEB, VCE, confined area, hydrocarbon release, oil and chemical spillage. All these are, so these are, you can see, these are the type of hazards are available in oil industry. Which, next. Challenges to tackle the oil and gas fire. Oil and gas fire are more difficult to extinguish than the regular fire due to the enormous fuel supply to the fire continuously. Oil or gas fire can be the result of human actions such as accidents or some natural events such as lightning, etc. In major fires, jets of the flame from the ignited high pressure vessels, pipeline propagate at a faster pace. Pipeline passing through the public areas, rivers, then delay in action to control the fire in high pressure wells may lead to blowout, that is uncontrolled flow of crude oil and natural gas from the wells. Oil and gas producing wells do not have fixed firefighting systems. Thus, gigantic mobile firefighting system equipments are required to mitigate the fire emergency. Like you have already have told that major challenges in our well fire. Since the well producing wells do not have any fixed firefighting systems, any that whether primary fixed fire that first aid firefighting system or the fixed firefighting system, so totally the well fire totally depend on the mobile firefighting system. And the moment you reach at the site, we are carrying the very limited amount of extinguishing media, and that a very systematic planned way you can only with the systematic planned way you can extinguish the any well fire with the very limited resource extinguishing media available at the well site. So, and last 7-8 years we have dealt with the very few wells very successfully in oil India due to, though we are having the very limited resources, but even though with the help of our mutual aid partners, we have dealt the emergency very successfully. Last, to control the any blowout, the flow of oil or gas need to be arrested, which in turn to extinguish the fire. So that when in case of any well blowout or gas, unless until we control the flow of oil or gas, we are not going to that is a myth. The fire has not extinguished. Only in the well fire you can only able to extinguish the fire unless until you control unless until you stop the flow of the oil or gas. Otherwise, if you extinguish the fire, the other indirect hazards will be posed to the surrounding area, like pollution to the environment, pollution to the nearby area. So that is much more disastrous than if you are burning. So that is why that only you can extinguish the fire unless until we close the flow of the gas or oil. Next. So to mitigate this type of the fire and risk management, mitigate risk management in Oil India has followed this 4 types of disaster management plan. First, your installation level disaster management plan. That disaster management plan at installation level is a plan made for the emergency or an incident which can be effectively and safely managed and contained within the site or location or installation by the available resources in the installation. And that disaster, that emergency is only declared by the installation manager of that particular installation and head of the department. If that particular level of the emergency could not be mitigated, then it will go to the next level, that is on-site level disaster management plan. So if that particular emergency has gone beyond the installation level and they need the help of the other department help or sphere help, that particular sphere help, so that level is called the on-site level disaster management plan, which is activated by the head of the sphere. So any sphere, so second line on-site level disaster management plan is only declared by the activated by the head of the spheres. Like in our field headquarters Duriyajan, it is only RC, Resident Chief Executive, can activate with the coordination with the head of department and with the help of CGM HSC. He can declare, he can activate the on-site disaster level management plan. So, and if that particular emergency could not be managed, could not be mitigated at the on-site level emergency, then it will go to the next level, that is called mutual aid disaster management plan, which is in that case it means that emergency which is posing on site as well outside to the installation, so where the district authority is also involved. So in that and help, we need that particular installation to mitigate the emergency, need the help of mutual aid partners as well as the district authority. So that emergency to be only activated by the head of the spheres and district authority. So that is called the third level of our disaster management plan. Then, and if the emergency is going beyond where our company need installation is required the help of any at the corporate level, at the national level. So our corporate disaster management plan is made, and that our corporate disaster management plan to be activated is having by our chairman, managing director, which is sitting, which is based at Delhi. So that is called activated by the chief, that corporate chief coordinator. So this fourth level of the disaster management plan in place in All India Limited, that is called All India followed 4 level of the disaster management plan: level 1, level 2, level 3. A simple communication chart for all sphere of the disaster management. So in case of any emergency at the installation site, like in charge of the fire, in charge of the medical, in charge of the security, with the help of them, the installation manager and site control installation manager, he will give the information to the zonal in charge of that particular particular installation. And next, the zonal in charge will inform to his HOD, concerned HOD, executive EDs, CGMs, and after that, he will inform to the head of sphere, like FHQ, PHQ, Pipeline Headquarter, Rajasthan project, any other project. And the project, the head sphere, in turn, with the help of head HOD, HSC, and district authority, it will be informed to the nodal officer station at the FHQ or PHQ or any project. Next. That emergency reporting organogram at the field headquarters Duriyajan. So you can see by this organogram how the information, how the flow of information is given to our field headquarters. That any spheres. So that is the typical reporting organogram at the field headquarters we are done. Next. The salient features of a disaster management plan, definitely that is administration coordinators for all the emergency, for the emergency disaster, emergency response analysis to be carried out, procedure to be followed for reporting whatever the as per the plan has been made, evacuation of the people to determined area for safe assembly system, designated control to be marked, rescue plan with the coordinators, all clear procedures, available resources, procedure to notify all personnel of the emergency and define their participation or response, control of the visitors so that unauthorized people should not reach to the affected area and delay the operations to tackle the emergency, listing of the key contact persons, roles and responsibilities, display of the important telephone numbers, drill to be conducted, do's and don'ts for that any disaster. Our disaster management plan has been made based on this applicable acts and code and practice, like your disaster management plan, Disaster Management Act 2005, Mines Act 1952, ERDMP Regulation 2010, Factory Act, OMR, CEA Amendment Regulation, OSD 116, 107, 189, 183, like that, PESO, OHS Code 2020. Some major fire we have attended in Oil India Limited in the recent past, like there is our Bowser unloading station, and Decom Bowser unloading station, which happened on 18/7. You can see that if you see the entry gate, when the emergency happened, the fire, emergency happened, that point of time, one Bowser was stuck up at the entry gate, and rest Bowser were lying inside the installation, and 2 Bowser were on the unloading pad. So when this fire happened, within a very shortest possible time, all the Bowsers were affected in that particular incident. So how you have handled, you can show through our video. Next. So that you can say that emergency were very successfully mitigated by our oil fire service team with the help of so you can see how much of that devastating effect for that particular installations, whatever the Bowsers were placed inside is also totally burnt out in that particular fire incident. Next. Then another incident, this well fire incident at Habjan, well number 28, which was happened on 12/5/2017. It was a cluster well. It was a cluster plinth. It was a cluster plinth. When the fire was happened at the morning hours, we reached that site and we were having very limited resources, but with the help of our mutual aid partners, we have in a systematic, very planned way. First, we have applied this trichemical powder, and then with the water, we have very successfully extinguished the well in a very shortest possible time. अरे another incident that was cluster well, Plinth, where there was a fire in two wells on 8/9/2018, and that well, that fire emergency was also extinguished very successfully. So, so already I have told that any well fire, we do not have any fixed firefighting system for that any producing well. So everything depends upon the our mobile firefighting system, and when we are approaching any well fire, we are carrying the very limited amount of extinguishing media. But even the Jutli Bari fire, the twin well fire, with the help of our mutual aid partners, we have mitigated that emergency very successfully. So that already I have also told in the beginning, in any ENP industry, time is the essence. If you have timely taken the action, mitigated the emergency, otherwise it may lead to the major blowout, which may take several days, several months to mitigate that particular emergency. So, and last, our this blowout, there was a fire in Bagjan Well 5, which has happened on 27 May 2020, and which caught fire on 9th June 2020, where the Oil India has even the fire brigade has lost our two brave firefighters while fighting the fire, and oil has lost a total cumulative production loss of 47,588 metric ton of crude oil and 127.25 MMSCM of natural gas. So gas flow was diverted to the nearby or early production system at Bagjan. The killing of the well was successfully completed with the help of snubbing operation on 15th November 2020. So total 172 days to kill the well was taken. So these are some glimpses of our Bagjan well fire. Though 14 days we have day and night tried to protect the well, but on the 9th June, it was the gas blowout was converted into fire blowout. Next. So way forward to deal with such type of blowout or major emergency, this type of equipment is required to deal with such type of blowout. So like this already big wind you have seen, this equipment has been used in the Kuwait well fire. So this T-23 tank mounted on the aircraft, this MiG-21 aircraft engine mounted on T-43 tank was very successful in Kuwait fire. This latest another equipment is gas turbine type firefighting system. It's coming in the market. This equipment having the potential to throw the mist, which is highly effective as compared to the conventional water spray. This is having the cooling effect of 8 to 10 times better than the conventional water spray, and can having the throw up to 200 meters. So this type of equipment is will be very useful for fighting the well blown fire, any LPG or tank fire. So these are the latest. Another this equipment, this high volume of water transfer system. This equipment is very useful for the well fire, where this type of equipment, even from the depth of the 60 meter, the suction can be taken from the 60 meter depth, and it can be used. That pump can be thrown in the water, and it will be lift the water up to the capacity of 2,000 to 40,000 LPM, and it will give the delivery up to 12 at 12 bar. There is no suction is required. Even having the equipment is having the truck having the capability, you can roll down the suction hoses up to 50 kilometers per hour. This is and you can set up the temporary upper ground hydrant monitor system to deal with any emergency. This type of also equipment is available to fight any tank fire. This high mast boom through which we can fight any tank fire or any oil, any tank fire for emergency. Next. This type of also equipment for in case of any major spillage, any huge spillage in the area. So medium expansion foam generators are that type of equipment is used to cover the spillage of any oil. This and the global service provider for well control already everybody knowing. And last in our Bagjan, this alert well control risk management specialists, they have been used. They have been deployed by the Oil India Limited, and this alert team has extinguished kill the well with the help of the snubbing unit. So conclusion, the disaster management plan should include all probable scenario. Resources required to tackle the emergency should be listed with their location of availability with the contact details. A control room should be available with the details of the layout plan, fire water system, drawings, mutual aid information, emergency response equipment, communication equipment, etc. Organization should also have an alternative control room arrangement in case the designated control room is affected due to the emergency. Control rooms to be situated in such a place which is relatively protected from the area where the emergencies are not likely to occur. Lesson learned from the past incident to be also included during the review of the disaster management plan. Site-specific SOP to be developed and communicated to all concerned personnel to avoid delay in mitigation of any disaster. A regular mock drill training to be conducted to familiarize all concerned personnel with their roles and responsibility. Thank you. Kill the fire before it kills you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful presentation and highlighting the crucial industry, oil and gas, some real examples of fire incident and some technological interventions that are coming up. Thank you, sir. So there are few questions that have been raised by the participants, sir. I would like to ask, I will raise that question to you, sir.
Okay.
The first question is, sir, why does it take so long, sometimes month, to overcome the fire incident in petroleum sector?
Sir, as already I have told, unless until you close the flow of the oil or gas, you are not going to extinguish the fire. I told you the in Bagjan fire, if you 2 to 3 times fire was extinguished, but unless until you stop the flow of the oil or gas, you are not going. Otherwise, there is no benefit. There is no advantage of extinguishing the fire. Otherwise, it will lead to the major area of the concern, like pollution of the area, then which will spill the oil and go to the river streams and go to the larger extent. So that is why, unless until you stop the flow, you are not going to. There is no benefit to extinguish the fire.
Yes, sir. And sir, there was one more question, sir. Like, what are the new technical technologies that are come, sir? I think you have already explained this in your last slide, sir.
Yeah.
There is one more question, sir. Question is from Sasi Mohan. His question is, sir, what is foam pouring system working like during fire incidents that you use for foam pouring system? What is it, and what are the materials in that?
That foam pouring system in these foam pouring systems are basically installed in the crude oil storage tanks, crude oil storage, any petroleum tanks. But foam pouring, you can also say, suppose if there is any oil spillage, even we are pouring the foam with the help of the monitors, water cum foam monitors. And in the crude oil, in petroleum tanks, we are having the foam inductor, then generate foam makers, and it will pouring in the tanks. So that is called a foam pouring system. So, and as you know, for any fire in oil, in flammable liquids, unless until that the foam is the best media to extinguish. That is which is having the cooling as well as smoothing effect, that controlling the oxygen. So that is the foam is the best media. That is why in all the petroleum tanks, the foam pouring systems are installed for extinguishment of the fire.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for making sir, for giving us your time from your busy schedule, sir. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. So with that, let's next presentation. So for our next presentation, we are joined by Professor A.K. Tyagi, Professor and Industry Fellow, Energy Business and Policies, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, UPES School of Law, Dehradun. With more than 40 years of experience, he has contributed in entire oil and gas value chain, exploration, development, production, marketing, knowledge management, overseas operation and engagement, including heading the interaction project development initiatives. So with these words, I would like to pass on the stage to Ashok Tyagi ji, sir. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, and thank you very much for introduction about me. And my topic of the day would be about discussing about the various aspects of the manner in which we have the major oil and gas related accidents and the leading to the disasters. And what I'm trying to do here is understand the more significant aspects of disasters taking place, and what are the missing links. What is it that before the disaster or the accidents we could have looked into the entire component of the oil and gas business that we were into, and basically I'll just try to touch upon my earlier, before I start my lecture. There was a query about from my earlier colleague about why does it take more time, so long to kill the well. So basically, as we know, that the blowout is the result of basically the outcome of the in the upstream sector is basically the outcome of the fire that plays in the exploratory drilling or during production. So what happened in Bakhajan was that while the well was producing oil and gas, some of the workover operations were required to be carried out, and due to some unknown reasons, the gas leakage initially of the small order, then of the larger order took place, and a stage came and it became beyond control. So basically, the blowouts and the proportion of the blowouts are dependent upon the size of the reservoirs, upon the abnormal formation pressures that come into play, and they are dependent upon the low porosity and the permeability that actually is responsible, and depending upon the volume of the abnormal formation pressures and at times the adjacent high pressure, high temperature reservoirs or abnormal pressure reservoirs, they get linked with the existing reservoirs, and when you are producing over a period of 5, 6, 10 years, okay, then there are chances that the link is established with the adjoining HPHT reservoirs, and that actually is not about that is actually not known in detail in advance, and that blows out everything. Now the formation pressure, so long as it is not sustained, it will continue to be there, and that is the reason that it takes more time. So I'm sure you are able to see my screen. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible. Plus, your PPT is visible, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great, Dr. Ajit Kaur. So the way I'll share now is I'll take my audience through to the manner in which the entire basic operations of oil and gas industry takes place, and which are those areas where we have the chances of having the accidents and leading to blowouts. So as we all know, and I'll be focusing more on the upstream component and the part of the upstream linked midstream components of the disasters and the accidents. So if we think of it, is important first of all to know about the overall oil and gas value loops, or the basic operations of in upstream oil and gas and midstream oil and gas, and we'll try and pinpoint the areas where we need to monitor more, and if not monitored in a prior environment, then it can lead into major accidents, and they can even blow up to the disaster. So basically, the entire oil and gas business, upstream oil and gas business, is divided into exploration, and then the drilling, the development, production, and once the production starts, the different wells of the field, they with the help of the pipeline networks, you gather the entire oil and gas at the group gathering stations, and up to this moment we are into upstream oil and gas business. And then once we are ready with the volumes of the produced oil and gas, then they are transported, and with the help of pipelines or with the help of the coastal jetties, etc., to the point of sales. Now let's talk first about most of it is known over a period of last 20-30 years that most of the accidents and leading to blowouts, they take place in the exploratory wells, or when you are actually working over the wells, and and uh, and due to the abnormal pressure and tight flow and of the of the all right. So so the main causes of upstream oil and gas disaster and accidents are the blowout or fire in the wells during the exploratory drilling phase and during the initial production operations or while producing oil and gas. And most of these blowouts, as I said, they happen during the earlier phase of exploration or during the initial production testing phase of the drilling, or during the or while you are producing oil and gas at the field level. There may be abnormal pressure that might get into the formations from where oil and gas is being produced. Now, the reasons attributed to abnormal formation pressure is basically it is dependent upon the kind of rock that we are encountered with, which has the reservoir and the kind of reservoir that we are into. So in most of the times, as it happened in the most recent case of Bhagaban in All India Limited, it is the tight or the low porosity and permeability of the of the of the of the tight sandstones or the siltstones or shaly siltstones, which have the high pressure and high temperature environment, or in the subsurface they get linked into this kind of reservoirs, and they actually lead it to the moment you are in you puncture them, or you start associating getting associated with them due to serendipity also sometimes. Okay, you have the development of the abnormal formation pressure at the subsurface in the zones from where you are producing. Okay, and it is the low porosity permeability envelope. Okay, that builds uncontrollable formation pressure, and as a result of that, that gets the mud system that you have flowed into the well to create a balance between the hydrostatic pressure and the formation pressure, that gets disturbed, and because of the abnormal formation pressure, the gas and the oil and the or even the mixture, it gushes into the well along with the formation water, and a situation comes when and one of the major solution at the drill site is that we need to increase the mud weight and make sure that the hydrostatic pressure remains more than the formation pressure. So we can control it to some extent for a certain number of days, and then a stage comes when the enormity of the formation pressure is not getting compensated with the increase in the mud weights, and it is at this point that the wells becomes uncontrollable, and that leads to big fire at times when the oil and gas, it gets evaporated and it goes into as an envelope in the environment, and the movement and then it is prone to having the big fire verticals. Okay, so then so this is basically attributed in the upstream drilling environment and initial production testing environment when the wells are getting drilled, and when the well is in the development phase and is producing. Even there, as I said, we can have the major accidents, and that can lead to big fires only because that in the subsurface, if we get to be in contact with the tight porosity and permeability reservoirs, then suddenly the intensity of the pressure goes up, and even you develop wells who are producing oil and gas, they become out of control, and with time and a stage comes when they get into the fire. Similarly, where we have the fire and explosions at the well site because of multiple technical reasons, like our mechanical engines failures, or in our drill string systems we have certain issues, or in the mud pump systems we have the issues, and the negligence at the different verticals of mechanical engineering, drilling, and well site geological operations. Okay, it leads to the your accidents, and which at times become severe, and they get tremendous fires. So the third major reason is at the drill site or in the exploratory environment is that, as we know, that we have the casing tubes and casing collars, which actually provide the stability to our wells, or to our sequence of wells. So with due passage of time, if the quality of the casing tubes or if the steel rating is not as per the provided standards, or if due to the chemicals which we use along with the mud systems to keep a balance between the hydrostatic pressure and the formation pressure while we are drilling and producing from the wells, then at times, because of rusting and because of adjoining extreme pressure from the formations, there are chances that the KC tubes with if they are not allowed, if they are not being monitored with the help of the specialized seismic surveys or the fracture identification surveys, then these KC tubes they fail, and you see big cracks, vertical as well as the lateral and horizontals, and as a result of that, the formation, gas, oil, and the waters, they become uncontrollable, and that in many cases have led to the big fires. So KC tube failures are also one of the important causes in many areas, in many geographies, or for the occurrence of the oil accidents, and that result to big fire, and at times when they go uncontrollable in a big way, that has disastrous implications. Similarly, in the offshore environment, when we are either in the development phase, in the exploration phase, and we are going in for initial production testing in the interests of our zones, or we have already developed the field and we are producing from the fields, and the network of the pipelines which is connecting the different wells, when it is when you at times, like we have seen in the onshore environment, when due to the casing failures or due to the tight porosity permeability, sudden gush of oil and gas and water, it gets into the pipelines and the failures of the pipelines, and even at times when instead of only gas, you have more of the condensates and more of the vapors and oil, you have a lot of rusting for a period of time and corrosion. And this rusting and corrosion, internal corrosion of pipelines in the offshore environments, this amounts and to having caught that fire. And so we have two major reasons of having the oil spillage. At times we have the man-made bomb blasts, or due to insurgency in the different part of in the different geographies of the world, or it may be due to the natural disasters like big hurricanes, coastal storms, typhoons, etc. Or it could be due to the man-made reasons, who are monitoring in terms of the health and maintenance of the pipeline networks, also leads to big cracks in the pipelines due to corrosion, due to corrosion and rusting, and then allowed over a period of time. This leads to oil and gas getting spilled over into the waters, and in the case of onshore, this spillage they lead to big fires if they are not allowed to, if they are not controlled properly. So having learned about the different areas or the different scenarios in which we are likely to have the accidents in exploration environment, in the development environment, in the well production environments. Okay, it becomes important to look for what the near misses recognition and the monitoring in the pre-blowout conditions. So what we are trying to do here is that we are trying to understand as to what is it that we need to monitor or that we need to see in terms of the near misses recognition before actually they get accumulated and they take the shape of the big fire or big explosion or flooding at times. Okay, so we need to monitor when the wells are being drilled, be it an exploratory well or reconnaissance well or the development wells, the abrupt changes in the formation pressures. Okay, they are required to be monitored very diligently by the drilling crew consisting of the geologists, geochemists, drilling engineers. Okay, and all these recordings while the drilling is taking place, we need to monitor as to and this abrupt rise of the formation pressure can be sensed by virtue of the need of increasing in the weight on bits while you are drilling, or in the case of your the return mud is is getting much more oil and gas and waters to the annular space of the drill hole, and and the well cuttings that return from the formations, they become more angular, and they are coming in much more volumes than they normally come. So these are some of the signals, okay, that we look into, that are required to be sensed more diligently during the process of drilling of exploratory wells and the development wells, and especially some of the critical drilling changes in the drilling parameters as a result of drilling, like weight on bait increase, change in the rate of penetration. Let us say if we are meeting a reservoir which is becoming highly porous, then we'll have a big increase in the rate of penetration of the drill baits, and if the formation we are encountering is very tight and having very less permeability, then we have to then the rate of penetration would reduce gradually, and in association with this and the angularity of the well cuttings that we are getting in the return merge, okay, and the invasion of the formation fluid that we get in association with the circulating drilling mud and the return merge. So all these parameters, the changes that we that we see, or the major changes in the behavior of these parameters that actually occurs while we're in the process of drilling wells, that in many times we tend to miss that behavior and those changes in these drilling parameters, in these geological parameters and the reservoir parameters, and thereby we are not able to gauge the activities, the reservoir activity, till such time it becomes uncontrollable. So the message is that we need to, in each and every process of the exploratory drilling, of the initial production testing, of the entire mud flow environment, and their interleakages, all the parameters related to that, some of them I have shared, they have to be integrated, and the change in the behavior of these parameters is actually happens as a result of the activities that the geological activity that is taking place in the formations, and when these parameters are getting overlooked or are allowed to be overlooked at times, sometimes due to negligence, sometimes due to overseeing part, then it results into accident environment, and then once we cross this situation wherein the signals are not getting, wherein the geological reservoir and the mud parameter signals and the changes in the behaviors of these parameters or these properties of the reservoir is not being sensed, that leads to.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
Sorry to interfere, sir. Just sir, due to time constraints, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So then we have another major cause of fire and the pipeline fires at the group gathering station level, or at the onset of the pipeline the oil and gas transportation to pipeline environment that we get into the trap of the accident or the major fires. Okay, so that we are seeing in the recent accidents in KG Basin and even in Assam we had seen. Okay, so basically what happens is that the entire oil and gas and the admixtures and the liquid components, it gets into the group gathering stations, and there it is required to be processed at centralized surface handling facilities to make sure that we are allowing the transportation of the dry gas or the pure oil into the pipeline transportation systems, and this depends upon the manner in which we have brought in the contracts with the upstream oil and gas company and the midstream oil company, and when we are not taking care of the overall separation processes in terms of oil, vapors, or and admixtures and the condensate, and we allow the volume of the non-separated or partially separated oil and gas into the pipelines, and that actually creates the corrosion and the rusting of the pipelines in a big way, and at times leads to the big fires and big accidents. Okay, so so let's look some of the things that we have discussed in terms of actually in terms of the accidents that we have encountered, and so this is an example of a blowout that took place in Assam in Oil India Limited fields in the year 2005 due to vapor cloud explosion around the wells. In fact, vapor cloud explosion is a culprit in many of the onshore accidents in the exploration regime, or even in the development regime, and in production regime, and even as we have seen in this case, and we are going to see in the Krishna Godavari example case, that it is the explosion of the admixture of the unseparated oil and oil vapors and gas and condensate. Okay, and as a result of the cracks, and as a result of the corrosion and the rusting that takes place due to these components not being separated and segregated, okay, at the centralized level. So this entire cracks and soils, they actually generate the big clouds of the oil and gas and condensate vapors, and that at some stage leads to explosion and also the fires. So in this particular case, the gas leakage was observed to begin with on around 2:30 p.m. on 39/2005 due to abnormally high pressures development over a period of time. And again, these abnormally high pressures, they did not build in a day. So if we had looked into the changes in the behaviors of the workover rigs or of the producing platforms, then the necessary actions might have started much earlier. Okay, so the attempt was made to control leakages that took place in the pipelines, and the fire continued for about 20 days. And as I said, that we cannot control the activity because of the enormity of the oil and gas that comes due to the overpressures or the abnormal pressures that we have in the subsurface formations. So as a result of the well getting fire, even the attempts were made to hire the Houston agency for fighting the fire and blowouts, and but it took about a month or so to still control the well. And again, the main culprit was the explosion of the vapor cloud, and the vapor cloud was containing the gas, the condensates, and the mixture of the vapors. And with the slight ignition of a slight heat beyond 40 to 41 degrees centigrades, these clouds they get into fire. And actually, vapor cloud explosion, if we look into the history of the accidents, they actually contribute more than 50% in terms of the accidents that we see in the upstream and the midstream industry. So the recommendations are basically that we need to actually develop the emergency response delivery systems, and with the support of the global experts, with the support of the in-house expertise prevailing in the different companies, and what I'm suggesting over a period of having involved with the NPD Norway is that we need to have not only the global expertise of the multinational expert companies, but for a country like India, if we can have some joint venture relationship with the experts in National Petroleum Directorate Norway, okay, and they could collaborate with the National Institute of Disaster Management and NPD Norway. National Petroleum Directorate Norway is one of is having the real expert systems and processes and deliveries in the field of identification of the key areas of the risk in the disaster and in the accident environment, and they have been successfully managing their Norwegian offshore fields at the different stages of exploration development and production in a very successful manner. And at times they have been very successful in averting the major accidents and disasters. And NPD Norway and in fact the setup of the entire oil and gas environment is quite similar to the one that we have in India. So we can think of having the policy provisions accordingly. So I think that was all that we could do in the short. If there is any question, I'll be too happy to take it, please.
Thank you very much, sir, for your disaster response organization, stream and midstream, involving MOPNG and both upstream and downstream regulators. So as of now, sir, there are no questions that have been raised. So as soon as if there are, sir, I will let you know sir, if there are some questions, sir, at the end of the session. Thank
Okay.
you very much, sir, for joining with us, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure to be with you all, and I'm especially thankful to your head of the departments and your teams there, and especially to Professor Surya Prakash and his team for the excellent discussions that we had, and ultimately this has led to our interactions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
So for our last presentations of today and of this, we have with us Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division NIDM, he is the head of Geometeorological Risk Management Division and is in charge of 5 specialized centers in NIDM. He was associated with various prestigious institutions such as CBRI, IIT Roorkee, JNU, Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, FRI, VIT, etc. He has also published several national and international research publications, books, articles, etc. in some of the high impact factor journals. Sir is also the nodal officer for coordinating with central ministries, departments for disaster risk management related to planning, research, and capacity building for various ministries such as Ministry of Mines, Ministry of Coal, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Ministry of Communication, etc. With these words, I would like to pass on the stage to Professor Surya Prakash. Over to you, sir.
Raju, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Let me share the perspective from disaster management. Most of you have actually heard about what is happening in oil and gas sector from our today's speaker, Raj Kishore Singh ji, as well as Professor A.K. Tyagi ji, who had informed you about what are the potential causes of major disasters and accidents in oil and gas industry and how they are trying to handle the situations. I would like to discuss the integration with the national disaster management plans, state disaster management plans, and district disaster management plans. And what are we working at the national level? And what are our policies on disaster management, guidelines, and early warning and communication? Recently, just a day before, we had the Nivar cyclone, which has affected widely our coastal states like Puducherry, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, and several other areas. And the oil and gas sector is not left behind in terms of impacts of those disasters which are happening in those geographical areas. So how we are trying to deal with those situations, we will discuss that. But before I take you there, I have this humble duty during the current pandemics as being part of the disaster management system to request to all our dignitaries, delegates, participants to kindly follow the 3-step rule which has been advised by Honorable Prime Minister as part of Jan Andolan for appropriate behavior in COVID-19 situation. Wear your mask properly. Whenever you are in a public place or in contact with somebody else, kindly do wear your mask properly. Second, follow face and hand hygiene. Kindly clean your hands frequently and thoroughly, regularly, so that the infection doesn't enter into your body. Avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth. These are the openings through which the virus can enter into body, can affect people. So, in case you have touched any infected surface, that surface, normally if it is touched by hands, we are habitual of touching our mouth, nose, and ears or eyes, so or face, the virus can get into our body. So try to avoid touching that. Then keep safe distance of about 2 meters. 2 गज की दूरी है जरूरी. is to be followed. And because we have opened up and working in our offices now on a regular basis, it is very much important to clean your office and various items in your office regularly. Clean particular the surfaces or the files that you touch frequently, in case it is being passed from one person to the other persons. Because there are cases which are asymptomatic. There can be a person in an office or around you who can be an asymptomatic carrier and get you infected, or it is also likely that we ourselves may be one of the asymptomatic carrier and can affect others. So always try to prevent the spread of the disease and take all cautions for safety. So stay safe and stay protected. As Prime Minister has said, till we have the vaccine, jab tak dawai nahi, tab tak dhilai nahi. No carelessness until there is a cure. So now let's come down to the disaster situations. I'm just sharing some of the database on disasters, be it geological disasters, hydrometeorological disasters, or biological, chemical, industrial, technological, or otherwise. It has been recorded by an institute, a specialized Center of Research on Epidemiological Research at Belgium. They produce annual emergency management data. We are sharing information from there that globally 20,000 disasters have been reported in last 30 years and 2.7 million deaths with 6 billion affected by all these disasters in total. If you look at the geographical distribution amongst all the 7 continents, it's the Asia Pacific which is most affected in the world. Almost 45% of the disasters, they have happened in this part of the world, and 70% of the mortality, almost more than 2/3 of the mortalities, and 90% of the affected population has been in this part. If you look further deep into this Asia Pacific region also, you will find that the South Asian portion of Asia Pacific is much more affected than other parts of this part of the world. 30% of the Asia Pacific impacts have been felt into the South Asia part, whether it is floods, storms, earthquakes, droughts, or any other such disasters. You will see the graph below that the variations are quite high in terms of the frequency of disasters during various years, right from 1989, when on 22nd December 1989, the UN actually declared IDNDR 22nd December through its 44th resolution. From January 1992, December 31st, 1999. So we had this data, and where we find the variabilities are very high in terms of frequencies and also in terms of mortalities. The deaths are also variable. During certain periods, during these 3 decades, there have been more casualties compared to other years. So therefore, we have to give attention why these particular years we had more number of disasters or more casualties. It's not necessary where the frequency of disaster is high, the mortality will also be high. There may be few rare, unprecedented disasters which can take toll of high number of human casualties compared to the frequently occurring small disasters which may take a less toll. The third one is the affected population. Affected population because we are now going for urbanization, concentration of population, and development and infrastructure. So therefore, we have this number rising in terms of population. If you look into the distribution across the globe, in terms of top 10 countries affected by weather-related population. So you will find India is one amongst them. So we will concentrating on them. And in terms of economic losses also, we have the huge economic losses in terms of total GDP. Almost 2% of our GDP as per one of the reports made by World Bank, and almost 12% of our central revenue has been lost on an annual basis in disaster situations. So looking into all these, Government of India actually enacted the Disaster Management Act 2005, and then followed by a national policy on disaster management 2009. The aim of the policy was to build a safe and disaster resilient India by developing a holistic, proactive, multi-disaster oriented and technology driven strategy through a culture of prevention, mitigation, preparedness and response. In the capacity, the emphasis have also been laid down on capacity enhancements of the human resources, and the approach has also been proposed. It has been said that because communities are the ultimate sufferers and also the first responders, so community-based disaster management should be given emphasis. We had recently the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction in 2015, in which they have also emphasized on ecosystem-based approach. It said that humans are living in an ecological environment setup which needs to be taken care because there are interdependent elements which cannot survive without each other. So both ecosystem as well as community-based approaches have been outlined here, and this has been done after a lot of consultative approach with the states and concerned stakeholders, land departments and local authorities. In order to enhance this capacity, we have to have actually knowledge-based institutions. For example, we had involved experts from the field like ONGC, Oil India, IOCL, GAIL, as well as from UPS, TERI and other areas where they have been working on these disasters. You cannot work more in every areas until unless the local experts, sectoral experts are not involved. किसी शायर ने कहा है कि चाय के प्याले में हम तूफान ढूंढते हैं, चाय के प्याले में हम तूफान ढूंढते हैं, मेज पर बैठकर समस्याओं का समाधान ढूंढते हैं. गणित को जानना है तो गणितज्ञ के पास जाइए, सॉरी, आपको इतिहास को जानना है तो इतिहासकार के पास जाइए, गणितज्ञ के पास नहीं, क्योंकि गणितज्ञ तो आपको 2 और 2 4 ही बताएगा, हड़प्पा की सभ्यता नहीं. Means if you have to actually learn, so learn from the field experts and from their experiences. That is highly invaluable. That's what I actually wanted to point out through that share. Promotion of international and regional cooperation, Mr. Tyagi, Professor Tyagi has actually just mentioned that we can have international collaborations, and it is very much important because the disasters do not know boundaries or borders. So we have to collaborate with each other and pool our knowledge, experiences, technologies, innovations, and ideas. Adoption of traditional and global best practices is very much important. Now, we had seen a record of several disasters in oil and gas sector. Now, what are we learning? Are we documenting those disasters well? And where did we go wrong? And where were we right? So if you will find the gaps and address those gaps, and where were our lacuna in practices or policies, it needs to be, or technologies, pointed out clearly and then rectified to improve our performance and make our the development safe and sustainable. So this is what we are trying to do through this process, laying emphasis on tabletop exercises. Yesterday, Mr. Bhatia from ONGC Academy, he was discussing with you that ONGC is preparing its human resources through tabletop exercise as well as mock exercises for adverse situations, which may turn into a disaster. That is very important. And he also informed how simulation is created through animation and these mock exercises. So bringing you close to the real situation that you may likely to face will actually give you a good experience of practicing disaster management and development of skills to test the plans. Whatever plans I was told today by Raj Kishore Singh ji that there are 4 levels of plans. Now at national level also we have 4 different levels of plan. Local level plans, we have district level plans, we have state level plans and national level plans. So now these plans, how they are integrated with each other, how to make reporting, who will take what actions, when and how, should be very clear and lucid in those plans. So capacity analysis of different stakeholders, response groups at all levels is also required. Because you may have trained very senior people, sent them to even abroad in handling disaster situations, but they may not be present at the site. The person who is present at the site would be the first responder. So therefore, we must look into this, who are the likely persons to be present at the site at the time of disaster situations. And they should be properly trained and provided adequate equipment and skills. We had, I told you in the inaugural also, a revised disaster management plan 2019, where we have this vision to make India disaster resilient across all sectors, achieve substantial and inclusive disaster risk reduction. We are talking to you this through this training, how to include disaster management into your own curriculums and training programs, as well as operations. So this is what we has also emphasized in our National Disaster Management Plan, to be inclusive DRR by building local capacities, starting with the poor and decreasing significantly with the loss of lives. As I told you in the inaugural lecture, we have 7 targets, and first of the target is reducing the number of the casualties. So we are looking into that, and livelihoods, the economic losses, assets, that means infrastructure, properties, economy. So all these are listed over there in terms of our targets under the Sandai framework, including economic, physical, social, cultural, and environmental assets, while enhancing the ability to cope with disasters at all levels. We should not wait for disasters to happen and prepare ourselves. There was a statement which was made by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, where he said, an aware, informed, and prepared community is better able to assess its risk and register as well as respond and recover from the disaster situations very quickly and efficiently compared to an unaware, uninformed, and unprepared community. What we are trying to do is, through such a program, we are sensitizing and creating awareness. Further, we will be sharing in the future programs more information and experiences on disaster risk reduction. The main pillars of this National Disaster Management Plan, actually one of the requirements under the Disaster Management Act 2005, NAC has got it prepared and NIDM has approved it. And the 3 major agreements which I spoke in the inaugural, the Sandai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030, Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2025, and the Paris Climate Agreement COP21 are followed in this plan. And as I told in the inaugural 10-point agenda, which was given on disaster risk reduction, in the 7th Asia Ministerial Conference and the first post-Sunday Asia Ministerial Conference on disaster risk reduction by the Prime Minister have also been considered in this plan. Social inclusion, every all-inclusive approach has been made, and you have to consider all kind of abilities and disabilities, whether there are, say, physically, mentally, or otherwise disabilities, differently abled people. Everything need to be considered with vulnerabilities of the populations. And mainstreaming DRR as an integral feature. That's what we are trying to do through this program. So we are trying to mainstream disaster risk reduction and resilience into the development in the hydrocarbon sector, I call it in general, because I have the responsibility for Ministry of Coal also, and also for the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, where both these fossil fuels are actually hydrocarbon products. In one way or the other way, dealing with several kind of byproducts as well. So what are the thematic areas is that understand first the risk. Very much important. This plan has actually highlighted this. Until unless you understand the problems and the risk, you cannot manage it. Somebody has said that if you are able to understand the problem well, you can find its solution very easily. But if you have not understood the problem and try to devise solutions to that, it may not work well. So understanding disaster risk is first and foremost and most important and fundamental in our approach towards disaster risk reduction and resilience. Second is that there is no single individual or agency who can manage such disasters because they are having high magnitude, severity, intensity. So therefore, we need interagency coordination. So this interagency coordination had to be practiced beforehand. And therefore, that is very much given importance, how the different agencies, they will coordinate with each other. At the national level, we have actually proposed incident response system, which has been talked about our joint director yesterday, about the incident response system, about the India Disaster Resource Network, and supply chain management. And all these would be very much required in interagency coordination. Investing in DRR, structural measures, I told you, and there were some other experts also who said prevention is better than cure. You can identify the risk, try to prevent that risk and minimize that risk through structural interventions, which may be civil constructions, or through non-structural measures, which may be in terms of regulations, enforcement, procedures, manuals, codes, etc. Okay, so or lifestyles, the all that should be done. Then capacity development as a regular part of the activities. And another major issue that is coming up is climate change. So climate change adaptation and risk management along with other kind of hazards is equally important. So we are trying to integrate this CCA, SDG and SFDRR together into one capsule for disaster risk reduction and resilience. Now I'll highlight few of the important things among the disaster management plan chapters, which is actually responsibilities and roles of different nodal agencies at the central level, national level. We had fixed up responsibilities for mitigation separately, early warning and response separately. So I'm just highlighting you some of the nodal ministries for management / mitigation of disasters. For accidents, particularly in the air, it is Ministry of Civil Aviation. Rail accident, it is Ministry of Railways. Road accident, it is MORTH. So you will see the agencies which are actually dealing those areas, who have their rules of business pertaining to that particular sector, they have been made the nodal agency and responsible for that. So similarly for cyclones, it is Ministry of Earth Science. Within those ministries, there are specific agencies which can take the responsibilities or who can be assigned those responsibilities. So similarly for earthquake, again Ministry of Earth Sciences. For cyclone, they have India Meteorological Department in the Ministry of Earth Sciences. But for earthquake, they have National Center on Seismology. So all these have different organizations. For example, for oil spills, because mostly it is in the oceanic area. So Indian Coast Guard have been given the responsibility under Ministry of Defense. For industrial and chemical, because most of the activities they are looked after by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, so they have been given. So all those items which are dealt by different agencies, they have been mentioned here. And also nationally we have issued guidelines on various kind of thematic hazards as well as operations. So various dimensions of disaster management have been covered through these national guidelines, be it earthquake, landslide, flood, or fire, or biological disasters. Every kind of potential disaster has been tried to be dealt with. And also training specific issues has also been dealt through the guidelines, as well as the cross-cutting issues. For example, the gender issues, psychosocial support issues, all that has been developed. And also mass casualty management, so minimum standards of relief. So you can see we have almost more than 30 guidelines that has been released by our National Disaster Management Authority, chaired by Honorable Prime Minister. For hazard-specific early warning, we have those agencies which have been monitoring those disasters or hazards. For example, for avalanches, it is Snow and Avalanche Study Establishment. They are regularly in the high altitude areas monitoring avalanche conditions for our defense purposes. So that is being given the responsibility as nodal agency even for our civil setup. They are part of the Ministry of Defense. Cold wave, Ministry of Earth Sciences, cyclone again. So these are the organizations, for example, for epidemics, which is currently there. It is Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So all these issues, and because there are offshore tsunami potentials are also there, we have a dedicated organization now, India National Center for Oceanic Information Services, inquires after the occurrence of the last tsunami that happened on 26 December 2004. So these are in brief some of the issues that I wanted to share with all of you. And if you have any query, we will be happy to answer your queries. And we will be continuing with these programs. This was in fact a 0 level sensitization and awareness program, where we have provided you some of the insights from a DM perspective and some of the insights from oil and gas sector perspectives. So we will be working more on details and then planning further capacity development initiatives, and also facilitating the disaster management plans, which actually need to be molded, revised and updated according to the current guidelines and procedures as well as frameworks which I just mentioned. With these words, I thank you all for your patient listening. Raju, back to you.
Thank you very much, sir. And highlighting on DM plan, policies, guidelines, and early warning system. Like proper implementation of the National Disaster Management Plan and policy, I think will ensure in achieving the greater harmonization by combining the activities of the central, state, district, communities, and public and private sectors also. And sir, there are particularly no question raised in this session, sir. So we will move ahead, sir, with the valedictory session, sir.
I have a question, Raju, if you allow.
Okay, yes, sir, definitely, sir.
Yeah, so it was a great talk, Professor Surya Prakash, and it was really heartening to hear your views and the way you have documented, the entire workflows of the different kinds of the disasters that are potentially possible. A beautiful work done. I just have one more small advisory, if you may consider. That will be greatly help not only the oil and gas systems but other systems also. You see, over a period of time, we have seen, for example, I'll be talking only in the case of oil and gas. We had the big Andhra fire as a result of Pasalpudi leaks and lot of pipeline leaks. Now, once these disasters take place, when these accident takes place, there are the concerned ministry gets into action. They come out, they set up the committee, joint action committee, state pollution board. There are some 10, 15 committees who always work in the major disasters. Okay. Now these committees, they give wonderful ideas, technical inputs, administrative inputs, managerial inputs, solutionary inputs. Okay. But I'm sorry to say that I'm candidly sharing with you, and I'm sure you could take some action in that as a national level, that not even 10% actions are being taken as follow-up action to make sure that in future, how we can improve. It's something like this, that the menu is ready for us to eat, but we are not eating it. These task forces, these inquiry commissions, they come out with such wonderful piece of informations and advisories that if we follow them meticulously in the letter and spirit, I think we win the battle 75% for the future. But it is not happening. So my request to you and to your system would be that, and you are empowered also as the National Disaster Agency, that you should issue a general letter, to all the ministries and the institutions, that all the inquiries, they should make out, wonderful Excel sheet of, whatever action is taken, what is not taken, what is the advisories, what are the different advisories, technical, managerial, and they should think of implementing one by one. And when they implement, they should also take you people into confidence. I think we do a lot of good work through our inquiry processes, post accidents, post disasters, but unfortunately, we are not monitoring that. We are not making full use of that. So I'm sure you could do something, and maybe you can apprise the listeners if you are still planning to do something in that.
Thank you, Tyagi sir, for guiding us and helping us. We'll try to consider all the suggestions that have been made by you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Raju, your mic is muted.
Thank you, sir. Sorry for that. So with that, we have come to the end of the today's technical session. So moving ahead with the valedictory session, let me quickly recapitulate you with our 3-day training session. So on the first day, that is 25th November 2020, Professor Surya Prakash, head GMR division, who is also the chair of this training program, set the context of the training program during his opening address. He underlined that Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji reviewed the gas leak in Assam on 18th June and issued direction for training on disaster management. And subsequent to that, MOPNG was requested to direct all its training institute to include disaster management training in the regular training curriculum. And this training program is also an outcome of the above directions. Sri Sushil Chandra Mishra ji, Chairman and Managing Director, Oil India Limited, joined us in the inaugural session. Though due to some technical glitches, he could not connect to us directly, but he has sent us his motivational and best wishes for the participants to carry out this training program. And yes, sir. And we were also joined by Sri Dilip Kumar Das, Resident Chief Executive, Sri Prasanta Sri Prasanta ji, Executive Director, HRA&A, and Mrs. Arita Das, General Manager, L&D from Field Headquarters of Oil India Limited, who provided an insight into the Oil India Limited approaches and initiative towards disaster management, and also provided best wishes for the training program. In the technical session of the first day, Professor Surya Prakash, head GMR division, talked about DM Act 2005 with roles and responsibilities of the ministries, departments, and agencies. Sir also talked about how in India the concept of disaster management has evolved from an activity-based arrangement or setup that was purely temporary basis to a rather proactive, holistic approach. This was followed by the presentation of Dr. Harjeet Kaur, a young professional, GMR division, NIDM, who delivered the lecture on the HVCR, Hazard, Vulnerability, Capacity and Risk. During her lecture, she focused on recognizing the risk and hazard at our surrounding, evaluate risk at different levels, strengthening our coordination and cooperations. During her lecture, she also highlighted some tools that can be used in HVCR analysis, such as focus group discussion, observations, interviews, questionnaires, secondary data, etc. Day 2 started with the presentation of Mr. Arvind Bhatiaji, GM production from ONGC, where he talked on major hazard offshore operations and discussed risk control system and procedure for petroleum industry. This was followed by my presentation where I cited some major incident that took place both at national and international level. Oil and gas sector is among the 8 core industries in India and play a very major role in influencing decision making for all the other important sections of the economy. And there were a few suggestions also that came up, like development of disaster management plan in accordance with NDMP, mainstreaming DRR and R strategies in all development activities of the petroleum sector, and site-specific strategies for disaster preparedness. This was also highlighted today also. And the last presentation of yesterday's session was done by Lieutenant Colonel Dinesh Chandra Vasisthaji, Joint Director, NIDM, where he talked about the COVID-19 also and the supply chain management in India. He also discussed about various components of supply chain management, such as planning, searching, making, delivering, returning, and ambling. And he also talked about the IDRN and mentioned that primary focus of IDRN portal is to enable the decision makers to find answers on availability of equipments and human resources required to combat any emergency situations. Today's session, that is the day 3 session, started with the presentation from Shri Raj Kishore Singh, General Manager, Fire Services from Oil India Limited, where he highlighted the role of fire services in Oil India Limited and also talked about the role of fire services and also major hazards in oil industries such as fire and explosion, oil and gas blowouts, and also gave some practical recommendations also, such as disaster management plan should include all probable scenario, and also like a control room should be available with the details of the layout plan, fire water system, drawing, multi-air, etc. And also lesson learned from the past incident to be included during review of the DMP. Just Professor Surya Prakash also highlighted this one. And this presentation was Sir A.K. Tyagiji. He highlighted that the main cause of upstream oil and gas disaster accidents and the practical recommendations such as developing the disaster and emergency response and delivering organization for upstream and midstream sector separately, involving the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas and both upstream and downstream regulators. He also recommended the ensuring the policy provisions for rerouting of pipelines with the time. That was very important also for overpopulated areas. And the last presentation was made by Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division, and during his presentation on DM plan, policies, guidelines, and early warning system, he highlighted that also a national disaster management plan to make India disaster resilient, achieve substantial disaster risk reduction, and significantly decrease the losses of life, livelihood, and assets. And sir also gave some recommendations about the capacity development also. So this was just a brief recapitulation of training program. So in the valedictory session, I will once again request Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division, for the concluding remarks of this training program. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Raju Thapa. Because we have come to the end of the current training program, which has been well summarized by you, that we have tried to cover the different aspects. So what I would say at the end of this program, we have to actually work a lot on this, as was pointed out by our experts also, that whatever recommendations have been made by earlier commissions or earlier regulatory bodies, which has investigated the case studies of disasters and accidents in the oil and gas sector, must be well accounted for. And if we will consider the implementation of those recommendations and suggestions, maybe we'll be able to not only reduce the number of the incidents, but also their impacts in the oil and gas sector. This has to be actually taken up seriously by a respective sector, by respective particular organizations for their own benefits. Others can only facilitate and support these activities. As I was listening to a radio talk, somebody was telling on that radio talk कि ना आपके हम सफर से निकलेगा, ना हम नशी से निकलेगा, आपके पैर का कांटा तो आपसे ही निकलेगा. So whatever efforts you have to make, so you have to make for yourself, by yourself. Others can only assist. जैसे हम हिंदी में कहते हैं ना कि अपनी खुदा भी मदद उन्हीं की करता है जो अपनी मदद खुद करते हैं. तो हमें ही करना है. I will wish all the best कि मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती हैं जो सफर अख्तियार करते हैं. ऐसे मुसाफिर का तो यारो रास्ते भी इंतजार करते हैं. So kindly start your journey towards disaster risk reduction and resilience till the goal is achieved. As said by Vivekanand ji, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is achieved. With these words, I thank the moderators, thank All India Limited, their management, as well as all the executives and human resources who have participated in this program. Besides that, all our delegates who had made this program successful, and also our IT experts and others. So my personal thanks to everybody who has cooperated and coordinated with us in this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So with this, we have come to the end of the. In the end, I considered it my privilege to propose a vote of thanks of this training program. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Sri Sushil Chandra Mishra, Chairman and Managing Director, Oil India Limited, and Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, Executive Director, NIDM, for their encouragement and support to organize this training program. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for our distinguished speaker of today's session, Sri Raj Kishore Singh, General Manager, Fire Service, Oil India Limited, Professor A.K. Tyagi, Professor and Industry Fellow, Energy Business and Policies, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, UPS School of Law, Dehradun, and Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division NIDM, and also our distinguished speakers from other 2 days for their presence to enlighten the participants with their vast knowledge and experience. I also express my deep sense of appreciation to Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division, who is the program chair of this training program, and Mr. Tosif Rehan Sajid, Manager L&D Oil India Limited, for their continuous support, coordination, and extended help and extended support in organizing this training program. Last but not the least, I'm also thankful to my GMRD team, Dr. Harjeet Kaur, who is also the co-coordinator of this training program, Mr. Anil Kathet, who is also the co-coordinator of this training program, our IT team, Sovit, Balaji, Gaurav, for making this event a successful one. I cannot thank enough to our participant also, because without them, this training program would not have been successful one. And I hope everyone has some key takeaway point from this training program, which they will definitely like to discuss with their colleague, and further disseminate the information about disaster risk resilience. And on behalf of NIDM and Oil India Limited, we wish all the participants a very healthy and safe life. Please do remember that our fight against COVID is not yet over. COVID is here to stay. So we must ensure, we must stay healthy and stay safe. 2 गज की दूरी और मास्क है जरूरी to fight against this COVID-19 pandemic. So with that, we have come to the end of today's session. There are a few announcements that we'd like to make for the participants. The feedback link is shared in the chat box. You can go in the chat box and you can give your feedback of this training program. You can share your views about the presenters, about the resource person. And regarding the assignment, we have already sent you the assignment format, and please you have to submit that assignment format in the given email ID, and your attendance is automatically recorded in the Cisco WebEx event, so you don't need to worry about your attendance. So with that, we have come to the end of this training program. Thank you everyone for joining us in this training program. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.